You could be living a much better life, but where you are living today might not be the best place. I'm going to talk about that in the context of prices rising and inflation. See, where we live right now may be fantastic because we've got a job, because we've got family, because everything is around us and we're comfortable, but sometimes in order to be successful, in order to have what we want, we have to be uncomfortable for a period of time. Let me talk about that further in this video. German gas regulator slash gas use or risk winter crisis. Imagine hearing that if you do not consume less of your basic needs, not something fancy and extravagant. We're talking about basic needs here, that you are going to be cut off from this. We will struggle to avoid a gas emergency this winter without at least a 20% savings in private households, businesses, and industry. The situation may become very serious if we do not significantly reduce our gas consumption. You see this, I'll show you several more after it, but what does it mean? It means that they are going to start reducing not the actual quality or something. We're going to get less of what we need. Okay? It's not as if you were getting steak before and now you're eating hamburger. This is just simply you are going to have power shutoffs. Your country might have been a developed nation, but suddenly it's going to be feeling like, you're in some sort of country with no, that experiences this regularly. I mean, I can't believe this. We're talking about Germany. We're talking about other countries in Europe that are supposedly established, and now you can't even keep the lights on. You can't keep your house warm. That's what we're at. I mean, I'm at a loss for words. Cold weather warning adds to Europe's gloom as it battles energy crisis. And basically the article is summarized here in the subtitle, which is less wind and rain could hit renewable power as continent seeks to wean itself off of Russian gas. So essentially here, trying to get off the Russian gas, they're trying to get onto new deals, but in the example of Qatar, that's not going to come online until 2026. At the same time, they're saying, hey, we're going to get all this wind power, solar power, all this stuff, but it's just not keeping up, okay? So that's the expectation right there for that. Then we have Germans warned gas use is too high to avoid an energy crisis. So we can see the same kind of patterns over and over again. You better cut your gas use now or we'll cut it for you later. This is a threat, in my opinion. Desperate Europeans return to the world's oldest fuel for warmth. It's back to the old days as demand for firewood soars due to gas shortage. Now this is happening not just, of course, in Europe, but all over the place. I have seen from you that people are collecting firewood. They're making this happen right now, knowing that as they go into the winter, it's going to get cold. They're going to need that. And that's smart thinking. I just look at it as a simple matter of economics here when they printed several $1 trillion and we can't even keep the lights on and we can't keep ourselves warm. This is, as far as I'm concerned, truly shocking. But it really begs the question, is where we are the best place? Now, I'll break that down further at the end of this video, but get that through your head and start to think about it. You pay a certain price for everything. Your property taxes, the house that you're living in, the rent maybe that you pay, and every other bill and everything that you interact with. And some other people have basically everything you do, but sometimes they're paying 50% less, and sometimes they're paying much more. It all depends on you, the individual. Like I said, sometimes you have to be uncomfortable for it to work for you the best way. And that uncomfortable feeling is something that people shy away from. But we should be, trying to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Your utility bill could be the next $5 gas. Drivers have stopped panicking now that gasoline has dropped from $5 per gallon, unless, by the way, you're in California, in June to less than $4 a gallon. But global energy markets are still turbulent, and the next pinch might come from winter prices for heat and electricity. By the way, I've been reading about how the United States likely will encounter some of this, not quite to the same degree as Europe, but we got to know about it. Look, price hikes in the United States aren't as severe, but US natural gas is still trading about 65% higher than a year ago and 170% higher than 2 years ago. We are looking at fairly high prices, so all things equal, electricity prices should be higher as well. We are going to have a pretty strong winter for prices. People should be paying very close attention right now, because this is the time frame in which you're going to have people that go broke, that go bankrupt as a result of food, energy, and everything that they need, a shelter, just to keep them going, okay? So be mindful of that, please, okay? And tell those around you that, if they're in this type of situation, to please get your stuff in order. Because otherwise, if they know your stuff is in order, they're gonna come knocking. UK will need to cut 200,000 jobs to avoid debt spiral. IFS says public pay rises have added $5 billion to spending, and basically saying, look, we got to cut a large number of government employees just to keep this thing moving. What happens to all these people? If you're going to cut these jobs, well, then you don't have a stronger economy, because they're not spending any money, unless you're going to then decide to take this and add it onto the debt, because you're going to give them some sort of social assistance program. So you're going to encounter the debt in a different way. They can't do this right now, pushing themselves into a corner, and I seriously worry about what's going to happen to the future of the UK. Now we enter the next aspect, which is just a chart that I wanted to lead in with, which basically explains the difference between stagflation, inflation, and deflation. Now you probably already know what it is, but I wanted to use this here, number one, to tell you that I posted this to my Twitter. So if you're not on my Twitter, every single day I'm doing multiple posts, so definitely check that out. But also that there are differences, and perhaps you could argue entering into a stagflationary environment, but only time will tell. Okay, look here. I wanted to talk about what's happening, of course, with inflation and the markets and how this affects the average individual. Until June, officials hadn't lifted rates by 0.75 points, 0.75 point or 75 basis points since 1994. Instead, they usually preferred making smaller quarter point increases that gave them more time to see the economic effects. Saying essentially they went too fast. This whole article gets into this. Why are they doing this? Why are they going by 75 basis points? Why? Don't do this. Stop. You got to stop it. You're going to break the economy. You're going to enter this into a recession. It's all begging and pleading right now, which is truly unbelievable, to say the least. There are fundamental problems that we're seeing. Look, new cars are finally back in stock, but Americans might not be able to afford them. You had a huge, if you remember 2019, if you were on this channel, think about what was happening. There were so many cars, so many additional cars available, that they were sitting on ships offshore just waiting. Okay, we don't have any buyers for them. We're just going to keep them here. I mean, have you ever heard of that before? Okay, and then it was, we can't get them into the lot. There's no lots. We have no places to park the vehicles. So just keep them there. And then 2020 happened and we have a big shortage of cars. So the whole thing flipped. It was odd, to say the least. And many things have happened like this as well. It's not just with cars, okay? Homes in Canada have never been so unaffordable. You can measure this in 100 different ways, but this is actually the truth. No matter how low those interest rates will get at this point, we've got the size of mortgages are just tremendous. And you're not going to be able to get that down anytime soon. They're adding on to that. A large percentage of the public in Canada has a variable rate interest mortgage. That's going to crush people, okay? Already the payments have increased substantially. And of course, if this goes on, we're going to encounter some big problems. And then I wanted to show you this before we break this all down. Hang with me for just 1 second. The global wealth pyramid, and you could see that this is just showing us how this is distributed, where the number of adults, in brackets, percentage of world adults, looking at this, seeing how much money the top makes. And it shows us That greater than 1 million, it's 1.2%. This is an overview of the global wealth distribution in 2021, just giving us an idea of where the money is. Of course, you didn't need to be a genius, but it's all at the top. So these people at the top, they are able to live wherever they want. It doesn't matter if food prices increase, if we have electricity prices increase, they are going to be okay. But for so many other people, not necessarily just the people at the bottom, but others as well, where they live will really have a determining factor in their living standards. Let's talk about that. And so as we see prices rise, we must start to understand what this all is made up of. And the first thing I wanted to discuss was power prices are rising higher as more countries are scrambling to find resources. We've never really seen it to this degree, which I think is really, that's a whole different story, but anyway, never before has there been such a scramble and a rise in countless commodities. Some commodities have come down, but you look at it when we relate this to power prices, just about everything has gone up. Now, lumber prices have gone down, so maybe you could have that firewood for you, but there's a lot more to that. Ask yourself if you're living in the best place which is conducive to your living standards. So maybe for some people, they could say, I'm going to go off into the woods, I'm going to live off grid, and I'm going to do just fine. For other people, they would say, no, I have to have, luxury brands near me. I have to have my yacht, all these different things. Well, they can't go to certain areas. And as a result, their income needs to be in relation to that. It's very important. So whatever you desire, don't let anybody tell you what you should or shouldn't have. You just need to know, and you need to build around that. Ask yourself if you would be better off in a different city or country altogether. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of Americans that are moving to Portugal. Why is that the case? Because of the affordability factor, number one, because the climate is reasonable, all these different things. They're getting away from what they had to do. And actually, there's ways to get a little bit better on the taxation and so on. Know what skills that you have or the occupation, and can that transfer easily to the new destination? So you got to know that. Is what I have valuable in the place that I want to go? Maybe you are a forensic accountant, but you're moving to some rural area that doesn't need that. Well, unless you could do that job online entirely, maybe that isn't the best thing. So that's it, right? That's all I'm saying. Income and wealth preservation should both be considered. Always factor that in, okay? What you're making and what you're keeping too. Okay, these are all part of the pillars of the money GPS as well. I just want to highlight that every single video now, I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest news, but tying that into you, the individual. This channel has really accelerated in where we've gone. I listen to you, your questions, your concerns, and I'm bringing and constantly evolving. If you want to see some really good stuff in tomorrow's video, subscribe, and I'll see you there.